Hey everyone, welcome to Handing the Shame Back. I'm Gloria Masters. I'm your show host, I should say. So each week we bring you a different survivor story, and that is so that we can hear stories from all across the globe, because one thing someone may say may help more understanding or more insight into what you yourself went through. And because of the nature of this, there is a trigger warning. We are talking child sexual abuse. So I have a wonderful guest. Her name is Debbra Blosnich. She's all the way from Pennsylvania in the States. She's a survivor, she's an author, and she's also a transformational life coach. Welcome to the show, Debbra.
Hello, and thank you for having me here today, Gloria.
You're welcome. So we tend to start with as little or as much as you were happy to share about what you experienced as a child going through child sexual abuse. So yes, what kind of how old were you, and yeah, any details you'd like to share?
Okay, so my story with the abuse starts when I was about 6 years old, and it was my father, and I remember being really happy, and I remember it so vividly. I was in my bedroom with my sisters, and it was late, and I didn't realize it at the time, but now when I look back at it, I think I believe that it actually happened the day that my baby brother was brought home from the hospital because I just remember we were being so happy. But the outfit that I was wearing, like when I put this all together, I was like, wow, that's amazing. Like, what? But so yeah, I was 6 years old. I was in my bedroom with my sisters, and my father would just said, "Hey, Debbie, come here." And I bounced out of bed and like, "Hey, what do you want, Dad?" And he was like, "Touch me here." And that's all I remember about that incident. Except for like after whatever, I went back to my bedroom and my older sister said, "Did he do something to you?" And I can't even remember what I said. Like I don't remember to this day what happened then. That's all I remember of it, the beginning. Um, so from there, as I grew up, there were different incidences that happened. Um, and my memory is very spotty. I remember being on a family car trip while I was sitting between my mom and dad in the front of the car and him touching me and doing things. Um, the worst moment that I remember, I think I was about 9. Me, I could have been older, but to me, I was about 9, and I was in the top bunk of a bunk bed, sleeping in the middle of the night. And um, I woke up to him on top of me, and I believe he was trying to penetrate me. And I remember saying, "That hurts, stop." And I believe he stopped. Um, and I don't have any recollection of actually having being fully penetrated by him. Most of it ended up being, and this went on until I left for college, so until I was 18. And it was more oral kind of things or just fondling and touching that I recall. Um, I do also remember, though, talking to him like after it would happen. And I remember him saying, like, "Hey, you can't get pregnant. I've been fixed." And at that time, I think I was like 12. And I just remember thinking, what are you, what? Like, just being really devastated by that conversation. I mean, here I am, I'm like 12. I'm not even understanding what he's saying to me. Um, yeah. And so growing up like that, I mean, obviously it played a role in who I was. I can remember people kind of chuckling because like at one point I think I went through a phase where I refused to wear dresses and skirts. And I made my mom buy me pant outfits. Like they were nice, but
Yeah.
I just didn't want to wear, I just probably just protecting myself.
Yeah. And you
So,
know what you and you're doing great. So thanks, Deborah. You're doing really well. The you know it's what's really what you've mentioned, and hello, amazing survivors. Welcome to the show with Deborah. Um, what Deborah's talking about, some of you can relate to as well, and that is that trying to wear more clothing as a form of protection, and how in our childlike minds we assume or we hope that that will help keep us safe. Um, yeah, and unfortunately it doesn't or didn't. So, Deborah, did you, to your mind, did your mum have any knowledge of this?
that's kind of it's a crazy question. When I was 9, um, I remember her asking me one time, and she pulled me into her bedroom. She's like, come in here and talk to me. And she said, does your dad do anything to you? Now I'm 9 now. So this has been going on for years. And I remember saying to her, not really. I said, I know I feel uncomfortable because, I've seen him looking at me while I'm in the shower. Um, but I think that's all I told her. Now, as I'm a grown person and I understand more of the whole situation, and in talking to my siblings, my understanding is that my older sister told my mom. What exactly she told her, I don't know, but I believe my older sister told her, which prompted her to ask me. And at the time, even I didn't know this at the time, but many years later, my younger sister, who's 2 years younger than me, was like, I was so mad that she wouldn't ask me because I would have told her. And that was kind of a point of guilt for me even later, because I'm like, one, realizing that, my silence and not telling the truth that day maybe changed everybody's life going forward. But then also that I had let my younger sister down, because that's another conversation I had with my dad, where I was like, if you're going to keep doing this, you do it only to me. Do not touch my sisters. And again, in that childlike mind, thinking I have some control over it. And I actually, again, like I did not know about my younger sister feeling that way at the time. I only found that out where it's probably 20 years later. So
And
in that moment, I thought I was protecting her and thought I had.
and that's the whole, that's a whole other level of wounding and damage, isn't it? That as a child, you're not being kept safe, but as an older sibling, you then carry the responsibility for the younger sibling, even though when you look back now as an adult, how could you possibly have protected another child?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
So we need to forgive ourselves and let all of that go because it doesn't belong to
Right.
us, never did. And, the other thing too, of course, is that your older sibling would have felt responsible for you. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Interestingly, you had mentioned earlier that your mum was in the car while your dad, sitting right next to you while your dad was, um, sexually abusing you, and nothing was said or done. And we don't know why that was, but how
Right.
was it for you growing up with a mum who perhaps was unable or did not protect?
Um, that's really, it's kind of a wild situation, because I don't think I ever really placed a lot of blame on my mom. Um, I don't know how else to say it. Like she and I had an okay relationship, a good relationship. And outside of all of this, she was a good mother. Um, and really very supportive. And even as I got older, like she was my best friend. And I guess I kind of always felt like I knew she had a difficult childhood. And I always wanted to make sure that she got to enjoy her life as an adult. So it was very weird. It just is what happens though. Like she was a very supportive mother. Looking back, now as an adult, and when I became a parent, it was kind of like, how could you ignore that? And there's many different phases of when things did finally come out or through the years as different things came out. Um, yeah. And I don't know, I never really blamed her until um, really kind of the end of my silence. I mean, I don't want to jump ahead in story or anything, but it ended for me in high school. My younger sister eventually told the police. They came, they took him out of the house for a while. He came back, nothing changed. At that time, I found out later that my mother had even called one of my aunts and uncles and told them what happened. And they were like, don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody what happened and just get on with life. It's better for everyone. Right. So all that silence happened. But I had spoken to my parents and I was like, like, Dad, you understand like that you hurt us. Like, I know you're saying you're sorry, but are we really safe? Because I, heard some shows and stuff and they're like, you're never safe. Like they can't change. They won't change. And I was like, no, but my dad did. And I've talked to him personally. Um, and he was like, I would never do that again. Well, oh my gosh, how many years ago now? About 4 years ago, though, he did. He touched one of my nieces. Now we're all devastated, like beyond belief, because we're like, you you said you would never do this again. And then like, and we had tried to protect, and um, by being observant and being around and things. But an event, it occurred where my niece was alone with him in the same room with her brother, but obviously he didn't care. And it happened again, which is when my relationship with my father ended. And then like my mom was kind of like, yeah, he's a jerk. You guys shouldn't invite him to things, right? And I still wasn't blaming my mom really for her part in all of this. But at that point, then what happened was when we weren't being around my father anymore, though, she would continually talk about him. And we're like, we don't want to hear about it. We don't care. We don't want to hear about what he's doing. We don't. There was even talk about, like, do you want to move out now? Like, now are you going to leave him? Now are you going to like do something else? I had even thought about like, well, maybe I should have her move in with me and that way she can get away from him, right? As if she didn't have the ability to do that on her own. This is how entrained and engrossed in this twisted relationship that I was. But about a year later, we were at a family gathering and I found out about this again later too, which surprised me. I had driven my mom to my sister's house and I drove my mom home from my sister's house. But while we were at my sister's house for this family event, my mom went up to her and accused my sister, my youngest sister, of abusing her son. She's like, are you sexually abusing your son? And I was like, are you kidding me? And when my sister told me that this had happened, I really kind of just like lost it. I'm like, that's it. Like, I'm done with her because my youngest sister, it was her daughter that had been, whatever, attacked by my dad. And I was like, she's protecting her children by walking away from your home. Like, she will not come to your home. And so you're upset about that. So now you're going to act like she's doing something. And for me, and that's 4 years ago, right? When I finally was like, that's it. I have to walk away. And that's when I finally learned to be free because then I finally reached out to somebody and I was like, I really don't know what to do anymore. Like, I'm really at a crossroads here and I don't know how to move forward. And they were like, you need to walk away from your family because they are toxic and it's not going to change. And that was the first time I was given permission
Yeah. And
to
that's
walk
that's
away.
that that's a very tough call to walk away. That's huge. And I know the incredible angst and level of thought and concern that has to go into that. But I want to take you back, Deborah, to a comment you made now through an adult lens, if you will, please. Do you really believe that because he had promised he would never do it again, that that would be the case as an adult? Now, looking back with what you understand about predators, um, yeah.
Yeah, no, with knowing everything that I know now,
Mm,
no, I can believe that maybe he wanted to, but I would never believe that he wouldn't do it again. No.
no,
And I would feel like if any children would be around, any girls would be around him right now, that they are in danger.
at risk, yes.
Yes.
And
And they always were. And they
yeah,
always were the whole time,
yeah,
knowing what I know now.
yes. And the other thing too, of course, is your mum obviously knew enough or sensed enough to ask you directly when you were 9 years old. And the reality being, um, perhaps it's something in her own history or something she'd observed, I don't know, as a child herself. But to be unable to protect in the face of it suggests a little bit of that dissociative amnesia or just unable to stay in the moment and be fully present with what is happening. Um, I guess too, the fact that she was able to then accuse your sister of abusing her son would have felt very challenging or uncomfortable too. And where did that come from? Why is she thinking that way? Mm,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. What comes up for me with that is basically, I feel like as a woman raised in um, some sort of abusive home, right? And she felt as a woman that she couldn't provide for us. Like, I think that was one of her fears is that, well, now I have these. Well, I honestly believe that at that time, well, no, when I was 9, yeah, she would have had 5 children, right? When she asked me that, she would have had 5 children. When it started, she only had 4 for me, when it started for me, as far as I can recall. Um, but I think that was her fear is that what am I going to do with these children? How am I going to raise them if I walk away? I really, oh, it's so
big.
the dynamics going on,
Yeah.
right? My mom was like a huge churchgoer, loves God and, her church and everything, and was very giving, loving person. I also asked her just before she died, I was like, Mom, she started a women in crisis center with some friends. And I even asked her, I'm like, Mom, like, how could you not support us? And how could you not walk away? But you started a women in crisis group. I don't understand. And she was like, well, that was for people that had alcoholic husbands.
Huh?
And I thought, wow, like, do you know what I mean? Like, you were a woman in crisis. You raised 4 women in crisis. Like, I could not make sense of it in the end. I just I could not reconcile it in any way.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I do wonder whether her doing that was subconsciously trying to save herself as well. She was a woman in
Yeah, she
crisis
was a
all of
woman in
those
crisis.
years. So moving on, Deborah, what are you, as you think about all of that, the whole history of this, and what was the impact on you, as you sort of grew older? You said it stopped when you were, I think, 16. Is that correct? You were 16?
18.
18.
18. It
Yeah.
stopped when I left for college.
Okay. So what was, what was life, the impact on you, as you got older, went to college, became a young adult? Yeah.
Yeah. Um, the impact that it had on me, I actually have several stories, some in high school and some in college, where actually um, pertaining to boys, men, I would find myself in situations where there wasn't a communication of like, hey, would you like to have an intimate moment? But especially in high school, I had two incidences where I can recall boys touching me inappropriately, and I just didn't say anything. I didn't ask them to stop. I feel like maybe they would have stopped if I'd said, hey, because it wasn't a violent attack, right? It was just like a quiet moment or something where I was alone with someone, like in the back seat of a car or on the school bus while we were going to a football game, like things like that. And they would touch me and I wouldn't say anything. Um, Obviously, that's a result of having my boundaries broken and not given a voice. In college, I kind of feel like I kind of protected myself a little bit in college. But unfortunately, again, I had another incident, going to parties and things like that, like college kids do. And one night, I was part of a sorority, not to give fraternity life any bad name at all, because that's all about who you're with in the moment. But I was at a party and I knew that somebody was following me. I kind of, well, I don't know if it would have made a difference in hindsight, but I remember asking my friends, like, hey, like it's getting late, and we weren't in our own town. We had gone to a nearby college, so we had driven, like a half hour away. So I couldn't go home. But I was with my friends, and I was like, I need someone to watch me. Like it's getting late, and I'm tired, but this person is following me, and I don't feel safe. Unfortunately, they did not um, do that, and I did fall asleep. But I woke up to a person on top of me, and they quickly just left the room. So I don't know who it was, but I remember just waking up and just getting myself together and just got on with my day. I never told anybody about it, um, and I never said anything to anybody about it, like until recently. Um,
That's
so
quite
how?
powerful, isn't it, when you think about the incidents, all of those years of having that boundary completely ruptured, actually not broken, ruptured, um,
Yes,
ongoing systemic, targeted, relentless abuse that you suffered, and that, of course, that's conditioning as well, because how can you say no? You were never allowed to say no. So how is it likely or even possible that you would find your voice in the back of a bus or in the back of a car to say no to someone, let alone report anything with an
exactly.
incident like that? So I think it's just with gentleness and grace that we just allow what was done to never, ever belong to us. It was not who we were, and I just want you to breathe that in. And as you tell us a little now about you as a person in your own right now, and how things have been with you and the family, like your sisters. Is that those relationships been okay? Have you as sisters been able to connect? Um, yeah, how's that?
Again, there's always so much to this, right?
Yeah.
Um, for the most part, me and my sisters continue to be close and strongly support each other. And, at this point in our life, we're finally telling each other more of our stories. As much as we've been on this journey and we're open and we're here to support each other, I don't fully know two of my sister's stories. I don't even know their whole story. I know enough to know that it was bad, you know. Um, I do have one sister who, when my mother passed away, she still feels the need to be there and support my father, which going through what we do, I kind of understand. The part of it that becomes difficult is I feel like it's not supporting my niece who was attacked by my dad. But overall, I still send her love and grace. And ultimately, she chose not to talk to me. Not that I chose not to talk to her, but which goes back to the person who gave me permission to walk away because they're toxic people and they're like a gangrene. And unless you cut it off, it will continue to affect you. And I feel like that's what happened with her. But my other sisters and I do have a brother in here who was devastated because he didn't have any idea about this until it happened to my niece. He had no idea that this was happening to us. So he was devastated. So we are close and supportive of each other, and obviously very supportive of my niece, who is amazing in her healing journey.
I'm so glad your niece has you and some of the family standing with her. Imagine the power of that as a child, having safe adults who instantly believed you and supported you. What a gift. What a gift.
Yeah,
And it
I'm
should
so
be
proud
that
of her
way.
mom.
Yeah, that's
And
amazing.
I was so proud for her mom because even when it happened, she's like, before we even left the house, she had texted me, Mom, I need to talk to you later. And I was like, wow, like that says so much about you as a mother. That
Yes.
says so much about her strength that you gave her. You know, she has her voice. And then when you heard it, and that was it.
Yeah.
That
And
was
she
it. Like
acted.
never again.
Wow.
So,
That's beautiful. Wow, so cool. I'm so pleased that happened. So tell us about you now, Deborah. What do you do? What sort of work are you doing in this space? Yeah, tell us about Deborah now.
okay, thank you. So yes, now I have decided to I'd like to say I reclaim my power, and I'm on a mission to help other women who have survived childhood sexual abuse do the same thing. And that is my work as a transformational life coach. It is more in supporting women in that way. I did also write a book. Is it okay if I share my book?
Oh, cool.
I wrote my book.
Yeah.
And it is, I will not lie, it is like a super short book, but I'd like to think it's powerful. And with that, you know, the book is called It Ends With Me, Breaking the Cycles That Keep Us Stuck, for all of the reasons that we just talked about. This abuse affected my life in ways that I wasn't even aware of. And I was running patterns in my life with relationships, even as I got older. Um, you know, I continued these cycles. So I wrote my book and named it It Ends With Me. And I do have a website also that's called itendswithme.me, where I just try to offer up some first steps for women. Because I know a lot of people, this kind of work does require a lot of courage and a lot of vulnerability. But there are people like you, Gloria, who are out here offering so much support, and it's absolutely beautiful. And I would like to just kind of be another safe space is my ultimate goal.
That's so wonderful. And I think you coined it really when you said the vulnerability. For a lot of people, they can sometimes assume that vulnerability is weakness, but what we know to be true is vulnerability takes the courage of a lion, really, because we're exposing a part of ourselves that's so tender and raw and just fragile, really. I think vulnerability exposes that. And to be able to talk about this is incredible in a courage it takes, because life and the way people live tends to be more on a shallow level, like take an Instagram of what you had for lunch. Great, do that. But is that really your life, or is there more? And I think it's the more aspect. And they often say that when you're looking to heal something, go to the people who perhaps have experienced something of what you have, so there's that understanding. So I think your transformational life coach work is pretty cool. Were you ever able to go on, or did you decide to marry and have children yourself, or how about you?
I did. Yes, I graduated college with a teaching degree. I did get married. I had two beautiful children there,
Yes.
to a lovely person, actually. But he was much older than me.
Yeah.
And again, in hindsight, I'm like, oh,
Oh, well,
I tell him now, we're still very cordial. And I tell him now, I said, we were meant for a season. We're still friends. We still talk, not a lot, but we're very friendly with each other. We still care about each other. I did then go on and have a third child, unfortunately, to a person that was not a safe space at all. My son, though, is absolutely beautiful, blessing, blessing. So yes, I did, and I did end up using my teaching degree, and I spent just about 20 years teaching autism support classes and life skills classes. So I feel pretty blessed to have had a life where I feel like I've gotten to serve people who don't always have a voice. And
yeah.
even in my classroom, I feel like I've worked with some children who didn't always have a voice, but my goal was to give them a voice for themselves.
And
So,
isn't that interesting how our work, and survivors, you can so relate to this, we end up doing the work that helps to heal ourselves. So I think that's amazing and so
yes.
powerful, really, when you consider everything that you had experienced. And when I think back to about what has helped you through your healing journey, are you able to share what that looks like?
Sure. Um, First of all, I feel like I must have been born with some kind of resiliency, right? Like I just like seriously going through all that. Like I, even though I knew that the things that were happening in my home were bad, and when I went to college, I feel like the things were bad, right? People would call me eternally optimistic, always finding the silver lining, always finding the bright side of everything, right? And I feel like that's probably a result of it, but it's a positive in my mind. Um, oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought there. Oh, how did I heal?
What
Nothing.
helped you? What
Yeah,
helped you, I guess?
what helped me? To get through life there, I do. I think it was probably some faith in God that like he's there for me and he's got me somewhere in there that has to have played a part. Um, a resilient spirit, really, because I really don't know what else to say as far as that. Once this all came out, though, what really was the turning point was my mom saying that to my sister really just was slap in the face, wake up moment for me. And I woke up.
You mean the moment that your mum asked about or accused her of sexually abusing her son?
Yes,
Yes, yes.
that was my wake up call. And I was like, whoa, no, 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 no. This is not right. This is not okay. Like it was never okay. But now you're taking it to like a whole nother level. Like you're going to turn on us now. No. And that is the moment that I woke up. And when the person I called, I tell her when I called BetterHelp online, I'm like, I need to talk to somebody because I don't know what to do. Right. I talked to this man for 15 minutes. I was just spilled out my whole life. And he was like, I don't normally do this, but I'm going to tell you, walk away. And when I was given that permission, and more like you need to do this, right? I mean, obviously I still had a choice, and he wasn't saying it like you don't have a choice. He was just very much like, I'm listening to you. But that was the permission I needed, right? Because I always felt like, oh, if I walk away, now it's my fault the family fell apart, right? We're going to blame ourselves when it has nothing to do with us. Your behavior is why this family is falling apart. And that's very, very difficult to take on when you've gone through this your whole life, thinking, oh, if I say something, it's going to be my fault this family fell apart, when the reality is it's not. So that was the very first step. That permission to walk away was probably the best gift I could have been given. And even though it's hard and I don't always advocate for it, but it changed my life.
Yeah.
and I was finally allowed to be like, oh, I can tell people what happened to me and I'm going to be okay. Like, he didn't even say that. He just said, you can walk away. I then did find Perry, and he at the time was just running a group where you could share your story. And I told my story for the first time ever. And I listened to stories. And in that moment, it was like a relief and a sadness, because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one that's being abused by their father. I'm not the only one whose mom knows that it's happening, and the mom still stays. Like, so finding a safe space to tell my story. And then shortly after that, I found a mentor that was a transformational life coach. And so I went on that journey. And so I kind of simultaneously wrote my book and began a healing journey of understanding that everything that we do, all of our reactions, are choices that we make. And I used to hate that statement because, like, if I would say, like, oh, like talking about my son, like, oh, that relationship was really bad. And they're like, well, you always had a choice. You always had a choice. To which now I'm like, you're right. I did have a choice, but I was making choices based on trauma and based on living in survival mode. I wasn't making a choice as myself.
Yeah.
And so now, after going through all this personal development and growth, I've just learned to understand the deep impacts that it does have on the choices that we do make in our life, and the importance of learning self-love. And I've really just come to believe that, like, if everybody could find a way to love themselves, one, I feel like a lot less of this would be happening, because people would be loving themselves, so they wouldn't be trying to validate themselves outside of themselves. And we as survivors, when we can tell our story in a safe space and recognize and learn the different ways that it really impacts us, and kind of relearn who we really are, we can start to live a really just a more full life, because now you're living as yourself, and you learn kind of to let go of those negative patterns of living.
And it's so true what you say. And when you think about, we become what we are conditioned to become. So that's much more powerful than reading something or hearing something. If you've been conditioned for all of your childhood to respond in a certain way or to behave in a certain way, then that is probably what you will do. And there is no escaping that. It's deeply entrenched in the subconscious mind until we're adults and old enough to move away from that. So, Debbra, please stay right there while we finish up. But thank you so much for your words today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So, survivors, as Deborah's been talking and I've been thinking about what she's been sharing, there's such power in her story, and the fact that she talks about the resilience she has. And what she's had to endure and make sense of, not just in the abuse itself, but in then noticing that it was, her, or discovering that it was her younger sibling as well, and then years later her niece. And I think all of that plays such a pivotal part in how we see the world and how we recover ourselves. But one thing I do want to bring up that she said, which I absolutely love, is that, really I'm going to frame it as a question. Is it a choice how we respond when really we're coming from trauma or survival mode? And I think that's a gift to you as amazing survivors that you are. So as we finish, once again, beautiful ones, I see you, I stand beside you, and I believe you.